Welcome back here with Dr. Goldberg. Today I wanted to discuss the whole culture of dolls in the manosphere. Now, I've made the point before that I don't feel these are going to ever take mainstream hold for the simple fact that what they provide to the men who would use them is already widely available. You have the toys, you have the pornography, you have the VR porn. Why spend money on this thing which can be between $5,700 or $25K so you can have a life-size replica of a woman while you're claiming that you're trying to go your own way? It doesn't make any sense to me. It seems as though you would just use pornography to deal with your drive and then get it over with. But it's one of those dynamics where if you bring up this discussion, guys, especially the younger dudes who probably haven't used one, will say stuff like, well, you might as well have a doll because women just lie there in sex doing nothing, just getting it over with. And I'm going to offend a lot of folks here, but here's the reality. Unless she has just been numbed by being with too many men or she's asexual, it's probably because the guy doesn't know how to touch her the right way. Now, you can claim that's a simp statement, but let's just be real. He probably didn't learn from his parents. Well, I hope to God he didn't. Not from sex education. And women typically don't step in and tell a guy that he's doing something wrong because there's the whole ego thing. What do you mean? I know what I'm doing. So there are dudes who go through different women and they have no clue what the hell it is to actually make a woman feel good. Because if you do that, if you know how to handle a woman the right way, it's totally different. She'll reciprocate. She's much more affectionate. It becomes a very memorable and frankly extremely erotic experience. That's something you're not going to understand if you don't know how to do it the right way. So with that being said, they'll claim, yeah, but they'll become more advanced and they're going to have personalities. It's not just Lars and the real girl, but she'll be able to reciprocate, show some sense of affection and desire. But even there, you're going to have in the back of your head, that is a software or hardware telling it to do that. It's not genuinely choosing you. So even if a real woman, you might claim she has ulterior motives, she's not sincere, it's going to feel on a basic human foundation. You're going to have a sense that it's more legitimate than a robot is going to provide to you. And that's where we have this sort of massive chasm. Also, if it has more personality, the question is, can it accuse you of rape? Can it go its own way? Can it cheat on you? These are very large ethical queries which are going to have to be dealt with if, in fact, these things become a lot more sophisticated. But at any rate, the fact that a lot of people still crave love, a sense of reciprocation, even if you believe that stuff's BS, it's made up, it's all about resources, doesn't change the fact a lot of guys pursue it. And that's why I don't think these things are going to end up being satisfying, even if the dudes believe, oh, it's going to make me no longer care about women. Now, rather than listen to me, I wanted to play this clip of the foremost advocate of sex dolls in the manosphere. We don't agree on a lot of things, and certainly I don't approve of the lifestyle. I've been offered, by the way, they said, hey, do you want to advertise sex dolls? We'll pay you. I said, no, I'm not interested in that whatsoever. But TFM, I did like his book, 13 Rules. I just want you to listen to this clip, and it gives you a sense of what I'm talking about here. Now, I'm not going to play or show the video because there's some images I don't want to see on my channel, but I will link to it if you're interested. It just gives you a sense of, like, the approach to these things.
You know, MGTOW talk a lot about replacing women with robots, artificial wombs, and stuff like that. Now, as you may or may not be aware, I own a lot of sex toys, including a couple hobbit torsos and doggy-style butts. You combine it with some VR, gets the job done. But there's something you can't do with a doggy-style butt or a hobbit torso, even with the aid of VR. And that's actually what made the doll so special. It was the little non-sexual things. Just holding it, hugging it, even kissing it. Things that you could technically do with a sex toy. I have some blowjob pocket pussies that have like a mouth on it that is designed for you to put your dick in. You could make out with that if you wanted. I've never had the desire to. But when it came to the doll, I just liked touching it. I just liked having it around. I know it wasn't a real woman. I know it's just a doll. But because it's realistically proportioned and weighted, it feels like a real woman. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I miss feeling a woman. I miss just reaching out and having a woman in my arms.
So I think right there, I mean, it just says so much about what we're discussing. Even with all this stuff, all the perfect distilling of the human interaction, she's just a piece of meat, it's just about getting your rocks off, still a sense of it's incomplete, it's not the same thing. And I really have to stop and consider, because if we look at how guys in the manosphere always talk about how we're fighting the system, we're against the establishment. But it's interesting how this sort of stuff is almost marching along with the establishment. Let's look at, for a second, okay, what do you call it? Communism, globalism, modernism, whatever you want to do. I don't care. I'm not going to politicize it. You have genders don't exist, right? Think of the communist worker unit uniforms, the baggy pockets so you can't see the woman's figure. You have, okay, everything is about the career. Everything's about having a job and making money. Forget about family. In fact, cut off your family if you feel like they're preventing you from making enough money. Don't have kids. Just focus on making money and retire early. Be this isolated consumer that has a bunch of technology available but otherwise doesn't interact with real people, and buy stuff on Amazon. Work for that system and nothing else. Look at cuties. You've got these sickos in the reviews. Oh yeah, it's just artistic. It's perfectly normal. Same thing. It's not a child. It's just a normal interaction between two people. No. Okay. This attempt to say everything's about having money and more pleasure as an individual it's kind of disturbing, to be perfectly honest. And yet a lot of guys in the manosphere, they just seem to embrace it wholeheartedly. Now, if people individually, people like TFM want to make a decision, that's up to them. But I'm saying you younger guys, be careful about thinking that you can run away from your humanity, from your basic impulses, and somehow that's going to work out fine if you just persuade yourself. A lot of this stuff is about we can overcome our sexual drive. Well, are you doing it the right way? It strikes me that some guys, MGTOW or not, will end up getting married, and maybe that's a bad decision. Some guys will just date casually. Other dudes might move someplace where there's legalized prostitution. All of those things are a lot more in line with sort of a normal conception of humanity than to say, okay, I'm going to try to buy this thing and it's going to replace everything. And are you going to even be satisfied? I mean, today you've got the, can you customize the dolls? Today you've got the Beijing pancake ass, and tomorrow it's the West African onion booty. Are you going to be okay with that, or are you going to be bored? Are you going to still long for a real relationship that feels like it's genuine, even if it might not be? And this is another thing I've noticed among some MGTOW circles. It used to be fringe, but now it's becoming more mainstream, is to promote trans women. And I'm thinking, you got to realize, okay, trans people by and large are not post-op. They're people who lather themselves with a lot of makeup but are still sporting the original stuff. So it's tantamount to saying, well, I'm a MGTOW going my own way, I'm straight, but I'm going to go with trans women so I don't have to deal with women. You realize how this is just, it's the maximum amount of coat possible. It's trying desperately to make something real that's not. This is what you're liable to be coming across if you're going with trans, okay? It's a dude with a 5 o'clock shadow. I don't know if this is pre or post-op, but that's what you're liable to be interacting with, not the idealized, perfect-looking transsexual. And so this is where I say, if you want to be gay, I don't mock people for being gay. In fact, there's gays who have done a lot of great things with artwork, with writing, with politics. Makes more sense to just do that instead of trying to claim, oh, you're going to be still a straight guy going your own way, but then I'm going to have to go with trans people. Realize that there's bigger powers at work. That might seem conspiratorial, but don't you notice how a lot of movements that are claiming to be anti-establishment, the end logic comes down to basically marching towards that same end goal, where human beings don't have relationships, where you can't gather in groups because of corona. You basically are just a maximum individual. You're a hyper individual. Clean your room and take drugs because you're addicted to them, like our friend the lobster. And focus on pleasure. Focus on money and pleasure, and don't have any sense of meaning beyond that. Now, maybe you're just a trad con. I'm not really a traditionalist if you follow my content. I just think it's very sinister, and we should think twice before jumping on board just because you want to find a reason not to need women. If you don't want a woman in your life, that's perfectly legitimate. But don't try to twist logic and say, that means I've got to buy an expensive doll. You could just use pornography. Frankly, pornography, as destructive as it is, strikes me as being healthier than having this plastic doll in your house. And certainly healthier than saying, well, you're straight, but you should date trans women, most of whom, of course, are going to be pre-op. All right, so just, my encouragement to you younger guys, if you're going to go down this path, you want to get a doll, ultimately that's your decision. I'm not going to encourage it, but think about your basic drives, your basic emotions. People have gone to extremes to deny their own humanity. Origen, the Christian leader in Africa, castrated himself because he wanted to live with women without having desire for them. That's pretty much over the top, okay? That's like an intense spiritual commitment. But if you just find yourself not needing a woman in your life, then don't feel it's necessary to buy an expensive piece of equipment, which in the end, you may not feel any satisfaction from. And my guess is, I can't guarantee, but my guess is there are no refunds.